Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kirill, your Justice analyst, and the first semi-final has just concluded. Wow, what a great show it was. I don't know what was your impression, but I think the interval acts were absolutely brilliant. Camera works was great, jokes were great. It was also so lovely to see at least a video message from Celine Dion, still keeping the fingers crossed that maybe she will attend the show in the Eurovision final. And as usually, the results were not without surprises. So without further talking, let's just start by talking about our non-qualifying entries. I will try to analyze what could have been the reason why they have failed, and afterwards we'll talk about our 10 qualifiers and what awaits them in the grand final.
How much time do we have left together?
Our first non-qualifier in the order how they were performed in the first semi-final on Tuesday night is Slovenia. Interestingly, this is the only entry which didn't qualify from the first half. It's very similar to last year where only Poland has failed to qualify from the first half of the first semi-final. So it seems to be not so bad anymore to be drawn first half in the semi-final stage. Am I surprised by non-qualification of Slovenia? Probably not. I have to say from the beginning, I think the performance was really beautiful. It was so touching to see the pictures of him and his wife, also some small video snippets. So really touching, unfortunately maybe even a bit too personal. In any case, it was a very beautiful moment between the bobs of the first half, and I think he and his wife can be very proud of this performance. Unfortunately, the song was just not so strong, and I think it was pretty obvious already after the Slovenian selection that Slovenia will not be in the grand final this year. There was a ray of hope because of this beautiful performance, but unfortunately it was still not enough. If you remember my predictions before the rehearsals, I was ranking the chances of Red Sebastian only with 50%. I really saw this on edge of qualifying. I was not sure if he will be able to make it, but after the rehearsals happened, I saw how much they improved their performance from the Belgian national selection song, from the Belgian Euro song, and I think the work they done is really impressive. Unfortunately, it was still not enough to qualify. I think the song would have decorated the grand final, but I also got the feedback from my non-Eurovision fan friends that the song is sounding a little bit too repetitive, a little bit too monotonous, even though in my opinion definitely had those lows and the high parts. Maybe from the instrumental perspective there was not really much going on, and that's why this vocal differentiation and variation kind of stepped back. Also this color scheme, this red, black and white, is the one which was utilized by many countries in the semi-final, so it didn't really help to stand out. Even the next performance, Azerbaijan, was just showing the same colors, but I think Red Sebastian can be totally proud of this performance vocally. He was one of the best, he was so charismatic, he really did the best he could with the song. Just the song is maybe not something what the mass public from all parts of Europe would resonate with. What really breaks my heart is the fact that on Tuesday was actually birthday of Red Sebastian. It's just so sad that he got such an unpleasant surprise from the European public. Non-qualification of Azerbaijan definitely didn't come by surprise. I think vocally this was quite weak in the verses, his voice was cracking a lot. In the choruses, of course, it was lifted heavily by the backing vocals. I think right at the end of the song there is a very beautiful note the lead singer is holding. Just in the choruses somehow it didn't work. Full performance was just kind of forgettable. I think apart from this saz, or I'm not really sure how this musical instrument is called, apart from that there was absolutely nothing memorable. Very generic costumes, very generic background, nothing really interesting happening, and the guys unfortunately lack a little bit of stage experience, so I think it was definitely not a surprise, but nevertheless I really love the song. It's actually one of my most streamed songs from this year's edition, and I hope Azerbaijan will bring something what will bring them to the final next year. So what can I say about Croatia? First of all, Marko is a fantastic performer. He is such a sweetheart. He sang good, he had great charisma. The camera work was a little bit too overwhelming. I have to say, for me it was difficult to focus on this performance because it was just too striking visually, so I had to take my phone and check something there, because otherwise I would just see nothing anymore with my eyes, I think. The main problem of this entry is just the song itself. I think it's too chaotic, it's too much all over the place, it's not really going somewhere, it's just loud right into your face. But I really hope that Marko comes back with something much better, but at this point of time I think he definitely finished last or second to last. Cyprus was for me personally the biggest unpleasant surprise of the night, and not the fact that he didn't qualify. By the time the results were getting announced, I was pretty sure he will not qualify, but his live performance. The expectations were just so high. Cyprus promised us some incredible stage, and we all saw the videos where Theo even was training on the treadmill to kind of polish his vocals while moving. In the end of the day, was he moving a lot? I can't really say so. I didn't really see too much movement for me. Actually, the performance looked kind of too static, but then his vocal, I mean, it was just not working. Some notes were completely false, but mostly the main problem was the problem with the breath control, the problem with holding the tones properly. So there was not too much choreography which would take away the attention from his vocals. So the vocals were very much present there, and that's why it was just really hard to sit through. But it all just looked kind of strange and awkward. I just felt so sorry because this is actually my favorite song of this year's Eurovision edition, but this performance absolutely didn't work. I can recall only a couple of times when the closing entry of the semi-final would not qualify. Denmark in, I think, 2021. We also had Latvia in 2018 or 19, something like that, Triana Park, which also didn't qualify, and now we unfortunately have also Theo even. So the first successful entry, which was announced as the first qualifier, was of course Norway, Alessandro with Lighter. After seeing the rehearsal snippet, I actually thought his vocals are absolutely excellent, and that's why I was absolutely sure he will qualify to the final. Well, if you have seen his live performance from the semi-final, you would have noticed that there were quite a lot of struggles, especially in the verses. So by the time the qualifiers were announced, I was already not so sure about Norway, but I'm still glad to see that he made it. I think he totally deserves it. He's such a fantastic artist who can move so great, who has a great stage presence, quite good vocals, at least when it comes to the higher tones, maybe not the lower ones. The camera work in general was good. It just looked like a perfect Eurovision performance for me. From this whole semi-final, this one was screaming Eurovision the most. And in the grand final, Norway has been drawn producer's choice, which means we don't know if he will perform in the beginning of the lineup or in the end of the lineup. I think it would be a fantastic entry to actually open the whole grand final. It would be also a fantastic entry to close the grand final, but this kind of bulb would just fit everywhere. And the qualifier number 2 is of course Albania. I absolutely love the song, I absolutely love that performance. I think this was my favorite performance of the night. Still, if I compare it to, for example, Festivali Këngës, I think some of the visual aspects in Festivali Këngës were a bit more impactful. For example, when they hit the drums, I think the movement on stage, the waves and the camera effects were just more effective at Festivali Këngës. Here it didn't look as impactful. In any case, it's great to see Albania in the final. They were actually drawn second half, so it means they're kind of guaranteed a good spot in the Eurovision final. I still don't think that this is the entry which will hit the top 5. I will keep the fingers crossed that they come into the top 10, or at least will be very close. Qualifier number 3, the most predictable one, it's of course Kai from Sweden with Bara, bada, bastu. I think the performance looked absolutely sleek, great, just like in the Swedish Melody Festival, and I loved how they moved from this backstage into the front stage where the arch is towards the end of the performance. It definitely helped to connect even more with the viewers. It's just an excellent performance which definitely has a very good shot to win in the final this year, because we have seen how high actually the international juries as well rank this kind of entry, and Televote will definitely love it. So Kai were actually drawn producer's choice, and I'm pretty sure the producers will not ruin the chances of Sweden and will definitely give them a spot somewhere at least after spot number 10. So let's say maybe 12, 15, 17, 20 or after 20, and this entry will definitely fight for the win. And qualifier number 4 was Iceland. If you remember my predictions before the live show, I actually kinda didn't believe that Iceland will qualify. I was ranking their chances as 30%. I increased them after I saw the rehearsal, but I didn't know how the whole performance will look like. But after I saw Cyprus totally failing their performance, I knew there should be another Bob qualifying instead. And so in my kinda final pre-results ranking, I actually had Iceland instead of Cyprus, and this is what we got in the end. I think the guys totally deserved that. This was such a great vibe, and the song will definitely decorate the Eurovision final. The guys were drawn first half, and it would be such a great opener of the final, but they were already open in the semi-final, so I don't think the producers will do them so badly, but this bob will fit everywhere.
It goes up, it goes down, and around it, around it.
No surprise here, actually I thought the whole performance looked much better than the rehearsal snippet which we have seen. In the whole performance the vocals of Claude were better, there were still some moments when they were quite shaky, where he was cutting some of the endings, but it was definitely not as bad as I was afraid it could become, so it was a very safe qualifier and I'm pretty sure that we will see the Netherlands in the Eurovision final in the top 10. They were also drawn producer's choice, so they have all the cards to get a great result. I really loved actually how the outfit of Claude looked on the live stage. He's such a handsome man, he had great charisma, beautiful light. I also absolutely loved that it was actually filmed almost the full performance, like maybe except the last 30 seconds, just with one camera, but it still didn't feel boring or anything like that, because camera was rotating, Claude was moving a lot, playing a lot with the camera. So yeah, very clever performance and very well executed. I don't know what kind of witchcraft or sorcery ritual was that on stage, but it was definitely very impactful. The vocals of Justyna, I had an impression, were a little bit weaker than usually. In any case, she looked absolutely stunning. She's just such a powerhouse. It was absolutely clear that she should qualify. I don't think that she was in top 3 of the semi-final, maybe not even in top 5, but in any case, it's a great performance. Poland has been drawn producer's choice for the Eurovision final. I think it could be actually a very good entry to close the show, to be really performing with the spot number 26, but she could be put everywhere, just like with Norway. It's a kind of an entry which will fit everywhere. She had actually such effective visuals from all those whirlpools in the beginning of the video towards whole stage being in flames from the dragon. So really cool, really impactful, and she will definitely not be forgotten also in the final. This was actually the only qualifier which kinda left me puzzled. I thought the whole live performance just looked very awkward. So Gabry at this DJ desk, kind of lip syncing a little bit, moving just slightly. There were those kind of two guys on the front stage with the instruments, but we would hardly even see them. We would only see the masked singers, Gabry, and a lot of very wide shots, so not so many close shots, because actually there is not so much to show. I was totally missing the dancers. I think when this instrumental part hits right after the chorus, it would be just such a great moment to show again those ladies from San Marino Song Contest with their huge dresses, just waving them and having fun. This would be such an engaging part. So even though I was ranking the chances of San Marino as 45% to qualify, I still kind of tended to believe he will not qualify. So this one was a shocker for me, and now he got the producer's choice. So let's see where the producers will put him in the Eurovision final. Were you also surprised that San Marino qualified, or for you it was like a safe bet? Definitely let me know down below in the comments. Espresso macchiato, la la la. Well, definitely one of the best and most memorable songs from this semi-final. I absolutely loved the live performance. Okay, maybe the vocals of Tommy Cash were not the best, but that's also not the point of the song. I think what they did on stage was really telling quite a funny story. I loved the visual of the airplane, which was kind of flying almost like a bird behind them. Just absolutely ridiculous and just making fun of themselves. Or for example, towards the end where Tommy Cash was laying on the floor, being almost swallowed by the waves made from coffee beans. Just absolute trash, absolutely ridiculous, but so fun, and he will definitely decorate the Eurovision final. He was drawn producer's choice, so when the running order will be revealed, I think this will really show if he was in top 3 or he was ranked somewhat lower, because the producers usually tend to help the entries which scored very well in the semi-finals, and I think Estonia might be really in a run for top 5 or at least top 10 place for sure. Finalist number 9, I have to admit I was so happy to see Napa qualifying. It was one of my personal favorites of this semi-final. I was telling you in all my predictions that I truly believe that Portugal should make it. I can totally understand that this is not a typical song for the Eurovision fans, but why the bookmakers were underrating this entry, I definitely can't understand. I was totally puzzled when right before the semi-final I saw that Portugal was actually on the last place in accordance with the bookmaker odds. So yeah, you could have won quite some good money, but now we will see Napa and Portugal in the final. They were luckily drawn second half because I think this song was probably not in the top 3 of the semi-finals, so producers would tend to put them somewhere in the beginning of the show. Now they definitely have a good chance to at least enter top 20 in the final. In general, this performance was just so simple, so beautifully sang, just so personal to the guys. You could really feel that they have written the song by themselves, and it really helped them to stand out among lots of bops of the semi-final, among lots of songs which were maybe not performed so well vocally. So for me it was just a pure treat for the eyes and the ears. And And our last qualifiers who were drawn first half of the grand final are of course Cyprus from Ukraine. I think from the very beginning it was clear that this song should be in the final. This was not really a huge surprise. However, when I saw the live performance, I was not so sure anymore. I think this blurry effect doesn't really work so well. Vocally, I was very surprised that it sounded much worse than it sounded in the Ukrainian national selection or at some pre-parties. Maybe the singer was just extremely nervous, or maybe just feeling really tired because of course the show is happening quite late in the evening, but unfortunately there were lots of imperfections, many long notes he could not hold. You could just really see that he had not so much power in his voice. So I really hope that towards the final they will polish this, he will get again super confident, they will deliver their best performance, and then Ukraine might be very close to the top 10. And now let's compare my predictions before the semi-final with the actual results. And as you can see on your screen, my top 7 definitely qualified, so Poland, Estonia, Ukraine, Sweden, Norway, Albania and the Netherlands. The chances of Belgium and Cyprus actually have increased after the rehearsals because there was so much positive feedback from the media. That's why Cyprus got for me additional 10%, Belgium I gave even additional 15% because in my opinion it looked really sleek. However, it really didn't help, the songs were just not powerful enough it seems. On the other hand, my 11th place San Marino and my place actually 14, however, kept the coefficients quite close to each other. Iceland also qualified. So yeah, a couple of surprises, but definitely I have to say once you see the whole 3-minute live performance during the live show, it becomes so much clearer. I definitely understood that my 75% for Cyprus were totally overrated, or that my 30% for Iceland were also not really justified because the guys were just going to the final. So that's what I have thought about the first semi-final of Eurovision 2025. I'm extremely curious to hear from you what you have thought about this result, and especially whom you will miss the most in the final. For me personally, song-wise, it's definitely Cyprus and Azerbaijan. Performance-wise, Belgium by a huge margin, but now I just can't wait to see the second semi-final and see what kind of surprises it will bring us. So we will talk about it in the next one. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one.